average borrower is borrowing or buying the property, I should say, at about 69% of ARV.
Got it.
And that number is not an estimated ARV, it's an actual recorded sales price.
Okay.
ARV.
Well, in most of the flips that I do, I borrow a first and a second.
Right.
The second for the remodeling. So my return on investment is infinite.
It's huge.
Because I don't use any of my own money. Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday morning, bright and early, and we are getting ready to kick off the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki. You're listening to K-Talk Radio 1640 AM, and I've got a special guest in the house today. His name is Matt Strong, and Matt is incredible. I knew he did a lot of amazing things, but when I was reading through his bio last night, I didn't know how amazing you were, Matt.
Whatever, Yoshi. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So, guys, if you have ever thought about getting involved in real estate, if you ever thought about, oh man, it'd be so cool to fix and flip a house like those guys on TV, Matt is one of the biggest key components to making something like that happen. Of course, I would say probably the biggest component is finding the deal. I mean, you can have all the money in the world, but if you can't find the deal. But the second biggest component is finding the money. And that's where Matt Strong comes in. That's what he provides and helps his clients with. And I'm going to let him do all the talking on that. But here's what we're going to be talking about today. Talking about the ins and outs of a real estate transaction through the eyes of a hard money lender / flipper investor. So Matt's a flipper himself, but he also loans to flippers. We'll also be discussing the top questions he is asked by his clients. So he loans to a lot of investors, and what kind of questions these clients ask him. We'll also be hearing about a nightmare story. We always like to learn from other people's mistakes if we can, so going through a nightmare is not as fun as hearing someone else's. So we'll be hearing about Matt Strong's story that he has to share with us today. We'll also be talking about the step-by-step of the real estate transaction when borrowing money for a fix and flip. It's not the same as borrowing money typically. It's not the same borrowing from, let's say, a traditional bank when you go and buy an owner-occupied house. You're buying a house that's very rough around the edges, and a lot of banks won't lend on that. So if they won't lend on that, then who do we go to, and the step-by-steps of that. And basically so much more. So let me dive into a little bit about Matt so you guys know who is joining me today in the studios. So Matt is the principal in Sierra West Capital, which provides funding for short-term real estate projects. To date, Sierra West Capital has funded over 500 transactions and $110 million in volume. That's incredible. That's a lot. Matt Strong is co-founder for MS2 Properties, LLC, and Conrad Cruz Real Estate Services Brokerage. MS2 Properties has purchased and resold over 400 single-family homes since 2004 by utilizing value-add strategies. In addition, Matt also owns, either solely or with partners, over 46 rental units. Matt Strong also regularly represents buyers and sellers in traditional real estate transactions. Matt received a Master's of Real Estate Development from the University of Utah in 2015 and a Bachelor of Science degree in Finance from the University of Utah in 2001, and Matt's going to the game tonight with his son.
That's right.
Go Utes. Matt has been a member of the Salt Lake Board of Realtors since 2001 as a sales agent, and since 2007 has held a broker's license. Most importantly, Matt is married to the most awesome human ever, Bree Strong, and has 3 equally as cool kids, Berkeley, Peyton, and Wilder. Did I say Wilder right?
Wilder.
Wilder. Awesome. Very cool. I have a friend, he's from Chicago, and he named his 2 daughters Peyton and Jordan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Walter Payton, Michael Jordan.
There you go.
2 Chicago athlete stars. You didn't name her after Walter Payton, did you?
No.
Okay, or him?
No,
okay,
girl.
Okay,
yeah, Peyton's a girl.
Okay,
so.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, because there's Peyton Manning, right?
There is, right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's dive into this. Without further ado, Matt, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, what are the top 3 questions you are asked by your clients, and can you share your thoughts on each question?
Well, okay, that's a great question. Yoshi, thanks for having me. So,
thank you for joining us.
The top 3 questions, I think they're going to vary from time to time, but in general, people are asking, maybe I'll answer this as far as what are my top 3 answers.
Yes.
To a question someone asked about how do you get into real estate or how do you get into flipping. And you kind of alluded to it a little earlier on, but the three things I think you need in order to get into this fix and flip game is you obviously need a house.
Yes.
Right? Like you
Yes.
mentioned, you can't flip anything without having a product
Right.
to buy and then sell.
Right.
You obviously need money, whether that's cash or private funds or whatever.
Yep.
And then you need a plan, right?
Yes.
Like you need a plan to be able to execute in terms of how are you going to rehab it, who's going to do the work for you, how are you going to sell it. And we'll go into this maybe in more detail, but I think the easiest part of this is the plan, for me anyway, right? Like
Yeah.
once you have the house
Yes.
and you have the money,
Yes.
you're going to figure out how to do it.
Right.
You may not do it right,
Right.
but you're going to figure out how to do it.
Exactly.
Right? Because worst case, anyone can go in there and start demoing stuff themselves.
Right.
Right? And the money always comes.
Yes.
And we'll talk about where that can come from.
Awesome.
I think, though, the number one thing you need to figure out is how to find that house.
Yes.
That's going to drive everything, right?
Yes.
You have the house, then you have the ability to go find the money. You have the ability to buy it.
Yes.
Right? And this show maybe isn't about finding houses. I know you've had Trevor and other people on that maybe speak better about how to go find that house. But there's thousands of ways to go buy the house.
Yes.
But once you have the house, I always tell people, if you get a good deal on the house, don't worry about the money, because the money will find you.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Because there's always going to be a matchmaker for matching that money with the good deal on the house, and then the plan will follow.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very cool. So that's for people that are listening. It's so true. I've heard. I spoke at an event once, and someone said, "You say that if you find the deal, the money will come." Like, I don't get it. How does that work? Well, there are people out there that make money loaning money, so they want you to present their deal, right? Like, lenders don't make money if there's nothing to loan on.
Exactly.
And so if you've really got a good deal and you can match it up and you can present it to lenders, and it is a good deal, they want to loan to you.
Well, what's cool is in this game, really in any business, but in the real estate game, there's so many different players that are playing the game at the same time.
Yes.
One person, if they're maybe sophisticated enough and have all of the resources, can play the game and be all the players on the field.
Right.
They can find the house. They maybe have enough money in their bank account to do the funding for the house. They maybe do all the work on the house.
Right.
They're maybe a real estate agent and can sell the house.
Right.
So potentially one person can fulfill all the roles on the team of fixing and flipping a house. But typically you've got maybe someone that finds the house, someone that lines up the money guy that does the money.
Yep.
Then they're hiring someone, a contractor,
Yep.
to rehab it. Then
Yep.
they're maybe hiring a real estate agent to help them sell it.
Yep.
So then there potentially could be 7 or 8 or 10 different people a part of the deal. But you're exactly right? Like, so then there's people that just want to be a part of the game lending the money.
Right.
And so I'm obviously on different sides of the table a
Yeah.
lot. I'm buying stuff for myself
Yes.
to fix and flip, but then I'm also helping, other investors that come to me after they found a house and say,
Yes.
"Hey, Matt, here's this house in Kearns or whatever,
Right,
I'm
right.
buying it for X.
Yep.
It's going to sell for this much. This is the rehab. How much can you fund?"
Yeah.
And that's where we come into play, and we have to usually act really fast, because sometimes in these distressed situations, you never know when you're getting a house or how quickly you need to close, right?
Right.
So that's where we can come in and provide, private or hard money. When you think about it, it's the ability to act really fast, sometimes
Yes.
within a day,
Yes.
usually within 2 weeks or less,
Yep.
and can understand quickly the nature of the transaction, what the upside is, the risk of the borrower, the risk of the deal, and then provide the money needed in a quick and timely and safe way
Yep.
for the borrower to jump on and start doing the deal.
Absolutely. And that's so true. That's where we talked about earlier. Typically, it doesn't happen the traditional financing. I was approached with a deal opportunity on Thursday. Oh, we talked about it actually on the phone. I was pulling comps on it.
Yeah.
Yes. I was informed that if we move forward with this, it has to fund Monday.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days.
Yes.
You can't go to Zions Bank or Bank of America
No.
and get a loan in 5 days. So yeah. Awesome. Okay. So what other questions are you asked by your clients?
Well, you bring up a good scenario, right? Like, so a lot of times, and this happened, when I was talking to you, it happened yesterday. It's like, hey, a really local popular investor, John called me or texted me actually yesterday as well. And this happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I have a deal. I could buy it, but I need to close Monday, and we're talking this is Friday, and I'm like, John, that's like, with the weekend, that's like, a half a day.
Right.
And so a lot of times the main question is, if I get this deal, it's kind of like a hypothetical, but it's real,
Yeah.
Would you have $200,000 on Monday so I can buy it? Right. So sometimes my decision and answer to them, as far as, I'd have the money, will allow them to say yes or no to that seller on the home. So that's maybe one of the main questions is, do you have the money?
Right.
Would you lend to me?
Yep.
What requirements are you going to ask of me?
Yes.
And then how quickly can you get it all done?
Right.
Right? And so sometimes if I've worked with somebody multiple times like I have with John, really my answer is on the back end going, okay, do we have the funds available? I trust John. I know John's not stupid. He's going to buy a decent deal.
Right.
Yeah, John, we can do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes with a new investor, there's a little bit more of a road we need to walk down to determine, okay, well, do you know what you're doing?
Yes.
Is the house legit? Right.
Right.
And so sometimes I need a little bit more time depending on the experience of the investor. But that's probably question number one is, do you have the money, and then would you lend to me? Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, that's wow. Just in that, I think we could wrap, right? That was very valuable. We still have time. Okay. What's the second question, Matt, that you're typically asked by your clients?
So then once we determine, like in a hypothetical situation, would you fund this deal, right? Then the next question is, what do you need from me?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like your example of, say, Zions Bank, if you've ever gotten a loan, not to pick on them, any bank, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to usually want a tax return. They're going to want bank statements. They're going to want W-2s. They're going to want your credit. They're going to want, employment history, all that kind of stuff, right? Which makes sense for them. But for us, I'm really more worried about the collateral, the property, what upside it has, and then the borrower. Yeah. And obviously I care about the borrower, but if they're getting a really good deal on the house and they're alive, that's usually good enough. Right? Because if they don't perform, then me as the lender, I can fall back on the property.
Right.
So then them asking like what so I have a 2-page borrower checklist. So the things I want to know from them is I want to know how they perceive the deal. Like, what do they think it's going to resell for? In real estate, we call that the ARV, the after repair value. How much they're going to spend in rehab.
Yep.
How much money they think they're going to make.
Yep.
Right? So I kind of want to troubleshoot and look and see if I agree with them. Because I don't want to lend them money if the deal isn't going to make money for them.
Right.
And sometimes they're inexperienced and they think it's going to make money, but it really doesn't.
Yes.
So I'll maybe kind of troubleshoot with them their analysis.
Right.
And then it's more the weeds kind of things, like are they buying it in an LLC, who are they using, who's their real estate agent, just the transactional part of it.
Yes.
To make sure that we're prepared, especially if things are moving quick, right?
Right.
I need a signed contract. I need, to kind of check my boxes off.
Exactly.
But most importantly, I need those things. I need to know what the borrower thinks the deal looks like in terms of scope of work with the rehab, what they think the ARV is, and then just especially if I don't know them very well, a discussion about who are you using for the contractor.
Oh, yeah.
And 8 times out of 10, it's like, that makes sense. Good luck, let's do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, I don't think you're going to make money on this.
Right.
Let's relook at it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes at that point, it'll be like, oh, well, I'm canceling the deal.
Right.
I don't want to tell people if it makes sense or not, but sometimes based off of, well, normally we'd fund you, say, at $100,000 on this deal.
Yeah.
This one, I don't know, man. Like, we'll do it, but we're only going to give you $70,000.
Right.
That's kind of me pushing back, saying, I'm not so sure this makes a ton of sense. Right?
Yes.
So that would probably be question number 2 after, would you do it? It's like, how are we going to do it?
Right. Yes.
And then we'd move to, once that's a green light, then it's just execution, right?
Yep.
This is where you need to be at what time.
Yep.
This is how much money you need to bring to the title company.
Right.
And then I guess we could talk about either now or in a little bit kind of like how typically the loan's set up.
Sure.
Because that would be probably the third part of it.
Got it.
But
before we jump to the third part, that's such a good point. I had consulted some individuals on they were trying to do their first flip, and we got on our call. We had a weekly call. I was consulting them through this process, and they said, we're really disappointed because our hard money lender wouldn't loan on the deal. And I said, your hard money lender just probably did you a massive favor, right? And that's what's so cool about it is the hard money lender is almost a second layer of eyes on the deal for those new investors that think they have a good deal, but they might not.
They might not. And sometimes, you know what, it's okay to do a deal that, especially if you're really trying to get into it.
Yeah.
The only way to learn is sometimes to, fall on your face, right?
Yeah.
So when I tell people no, I hope I'm not telling them no, like, it just doesn't make sense, but add a value of, like, telling them why.
Yes.
Right? Like, this is maybe what you're not seeing.
Yes.
And sometimes there's borrowers I have where I'm like, bro, I don't know, man. I don't know how you're going to make money on that. You know? And they'll surprise me. Because they'll maybe do like an extra awesome job on the house.
Yes.
And do something really unique that added a ton of value where they will sell it for more. And sometimes, I'm right where it's like, yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, like, I kind of can see why you lost money on this deal. And,
right.
A lot of times though, some neighborhoods are more predictable than others. Right. So on those more predictable neighborhoods, we're usually in alignment with what, the numbers are going to look like.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
Very cool. Well, that actually is perfect because I have a question about your third question. So I'll wait for you to go over what your third question you're asked, and then I've got a question in regards to that. So what's the third question?
Well, so then obviously people need to know what it's going to cost, right?
Yes.
And every lender is going to be different.
Yep.
Just like every deal is going to be different. So our typical structure. And again, I wish it could be cheaper. It's expensive stuff, right? Just because on the back end we're getting money to fund these deals, and it's not like it's coming to us for free.
Yes,
right? So,
exactly.
But typically, a general structure for a hard money loan is maybe a 6-month term.
Okay.
Because if you're doing the house right, you're going to be able to buy it, rehab it, have it for sale in about 4 months.
Right.
Have it sell in about 30, 45 days. Right.
Yep.
And then so a 6-month term is pretty typical. We will offer extensions because some deals can go longer, right? But just in general, we're looking at like a 6-month term, 2 points. When we're talking about points, we're talking about percentage points off of the loan amount.
Yep.
So if we're loaning $100,000, the 2-point fee would be $2,000.
Got it.
1,000 times 2.
Yes.
And then an interest rate of 12%. That's an annual interest rate.
Okay.
Broken down on a per day basis for how long you're going to have the money out.
Yes.
And again, this is just like kind of how I roll.
Right.
I've seen other hard money lenders charge 5 points and 18%.
I have too.
So everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? So you've got to ask those questions, get referrals, find out who other people that have borrowed money from this person.
Yeah.
See if they're going to, destroy you on extension fees or whatever.
Right.
But the simple math, and I'll leave my contact information at the end of the show. Anyone could call me and we could go over the details of how this works. But really simple. If you're going to borrow, say, $100,000 in 6 months, in general, you owe $108,000.
Right.
So for 6 months on a $100,000 loan, your cost is about $8,000 for financing. But a quick note, I've done over 400 houses myself.
Yeah.
I quit keeping track because it was kind of depressing, but I've paid millions of dollars in interest.
Sure.
And I have not made millions of dollars.
Right.
I've been doing this for 15 years, so I probably have in aggregate made that. But the point is I've paid way more in interest than I've made on properties.
Right.
But I never would have made anything if I didn't have the ability to borrow money.
Right.
Because, the local banks weren't going to give it to me.
Yep.
And when you're getting started, it's not like you have all this money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
So that component of needing the money and paying the interest, albeit high, is so necessary, right?
Exactly.
I see borrowers all the time that pay 2 points, 12%, and they may make $50,000-$60,000 on a house.
Yeah.
And maybe they paid $15,000, $20,000 in interest.
Right.
But they still made and leveraged the right way.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of a necessary evil. So I love paying interest.
Yeah, me too. Seriously, yeah.
Because it means usually that I'm making something on the back end.
Exactly.
As a borrower and as a lender, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, in most of the flips that I do, I borrow a first and a second.
Right.
The second for the remodeling. So my return on investment is infinite.
It's huge.
Because I don't use any of my own money.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah, I pay lots of money in interest too, but...
Hey, like I said before, everyone's got a little, place at the table.
Yes.
And they can play the game differently.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it is so necessary. There was one of the real estate books Gary Keller wrote, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. I may get the quote wrong, but he said something like, "The path to wealth is through debt." Right? I mean, you got to be responsible, right? But you've got to be able to borrow
Yes.
intelligently. Otherwise, you're
Yeah. Yeah.
you're never going to be able to leverage like you are. I mean, how cool is that? You can borrow 100% plus
Yes.
and put maybe no money of your own money into it, buy a property, pay for all these people to do the work on the house
Right.
with someone else's money,
Right.
and then hopefully make money on the back end, plus provide a really cool new house
Yeah. Yeah.
for a retail buyer that's moving in.
I agree. Very cool. Awesome. So one of the questions that, sorry, I don't. Are you still going
think
with
we're
the
good.
third? Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, so somebody brings you an opportunity. Now, what do you do besides that checklist? And this is probably on the checklist. What do you do for your due diligence to know that's a good house? I mean, you're probably pulling comps. Are you driving it? How do you know what the repairs are for in your opinion?
Great question. So I've benefited from doing so many myself that I have a pretty good idea, even just by looking at the pictures and knowing the square footage in the area of what I think that rehab is going to be.
Got it.
And so I'll go inspect the property. If the borrower's telling me, hey, this is 40, and I look at it and it looks like 40 to me, bam, we're on the same page there.
Got it.
If he's telling me it's a 10,000, but it's like a 60 in my head,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I may battle him on that a little bit,
Right.
or I'll just adjust the amount that we're going to fund
Yes.
to protect us.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so, but that's it. And then if I don't know the borrower, then I'll do some due diligence on them. Usually just a simple conversation like we're having will tell me a lot, right? Like just simple questions like, what are you going to do to this house, right?
Right.
And if I know it's like a total gut job and they're saying, well, we're just going to put new carpet in, I'll be like,
Yeah, paint and carpet.
okay, let's see a little bit more if you're capable of doing this. So due diligence on the borrower, due diligence on the home itself, and then just in general due diligence on the market at that time.
Sure.
Right? So it goes back to pulling comps on the neighborhood.
Yep.
Seeing like if maybe they're buying a house where there's nothing is sold in the neighborhood in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Like we're probably not going to do that loan.
Right.
But, and this market's been good lately. Let's say they're buying a house where there is no house is active.
Yeah.
Every house that goes up for sale sells immediately.
Right.
Then that seems like a pretty good risk for both of us.
Right.
So the house, the neighborhood, the market, the borrower, those are the things that we're worried about. Because at the end of the day, we want a successful outcome for everybody.
Yes.
I want to do multiple loans with this borrower. Right, and so we want to make sure everybody's thinking through and going to have a successful experience so that we can do it all again.
Exactly. Repeat clients is a good thing for you.
Very good thing for all of us.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So
you want them to be successful because then they come back and you get to loan more money and make more money.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell people I'd rather do like 20 loans with the guy than just one, because you'll have some lenders that maybe are loan to own.
Yeah.
Where it's like, Yoshi, that's a really good deal. I'll give you a loan.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a 1 month term.
Right.
And you're like,
oh,
okay, cool. Yeah. It's like you got to set it up so it's realistic for the borrower to succeed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are you doing, right?
Exactly.
Like you're gonna have to just do brain damage trying to find new borrowers every day.
Oh yeah.
To maybe take advantage of them, right? Instead of setting everybody up to win.
Exactly. Okay, very cool. So one of the questions that I get asked, Matt, is so in the past I've consulted with people that wanted to get in the game, and a question I get asked is, can I also borrow the repairs money? And I shared how I do that. How can somebody, if they came to you, what kind of deal does that have to look like? Or maybe you don't even do it, because I actually borrow from 2 different people every single time. And so what does that look like for you? Could someone borrow the repair money too?
They could. This goes back to like how maybe a lender chooses to operate their business. Okay. We typically do not lend the rehab money. So, this is maybe beyond the scope of this show, but there's a first position lender. There could be a second or third position lender. Mm-hmm. It just increases the risk to the lender.
Got it.
Right?
Yep.
So the lender that's lending you the full purchase price plus the rehab, in a way, they're almost like 100% doing the deal with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So their underwriting needs to be a little bit more strict than mine. Like they need to know a lot more about Yoshi. They need to know a lot more about the house. So my guess is your lenders that are lending 100% plus the rehab to you are not going to do that to a new person.
Sure.
Because they don't have the experience or the track record, right?
Exactly.
Because then what happens is, let's say you don't know the borrower really well, and I'm like, okay, Yoshi, here you go. Here's You're buying it for 100. Here's 150,000.
Yeah.
Good luck, and you take that 50,000 and go to Vegas.
Right.
You know, so you want to make double it, or lose it. Right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure, from the lender's perspective, that if you're going to do that, that money is actually going for the rehab of the property. Unfortunately, I've seen it all too many times where, I mean, you know, I say we don't do it. There's exceptions to every rule. We do have a way where we can reimburse borrowers for their rehab money, and we can get creative.
Yeah.
Some borrowers I'll do 100% for.
Got it.
You know.
Yeah.
We still typically don't ever upfront fund the rehab money, but sometimes maybe after you've rehabbed the house, I'll come back in and reimburse you a little bit so you can move on to your next deal.
Got it.
But I've seen it where people have been, you know, gotten money for the rehab from someone else.
Yep.
And I've done the first mortgage.
Yep.
And they've used that money to buy a car, you know, to not rehab the property.
Right.
So then that just creates this big problem for everybody.
Exactly.
Because that lender that lended the rehab money, if the deal goes even marginal, they may not be getting their money back.
That's right.
But those people that lend the rehab money, I would bet, typically charge a little bit more than the person that's just lending for the funding of the house.
Sure.
Because there's a higher risk.
Yep.
So, yes, your lender may be able to get it to you. Otherwise, that's where you got to get a little bit of creative, especially if you don't have a lot of funds. So I've seen people use, you know, and there's risk obviously associated with all this. Credit cards, maybe lines of credit that they have from a house.
Like a HELOC.
A HELOC. Typically, though, they're getting friends or family or somebody they know to kind of believe in their vision and provide them kind of like, you know, equity or joint venture, something like that on the house. Yeah. Which we've all done it, right?
Absolutely.
One way or another. I've used home equity lines. I've used, you know, friends, family.
Oh, yeah.
And then as you get going and have more experience and maybe build up a little bit more of a reserve, then you don't always have to. If you're going to be a really successful flipper, you've got to have enough resources. Because, you know, you may have 10 or 15 houses. I mean, I remember times where we had 30 houses going.
Wow.
And we had like $1 million in rehab money out there all the time.
Right.
Because you know, you pay off one, so you've got to have at some point build up some resources to be able to fund your rehab yourself.
Awesome.
Or get a lender to really, really believe in what you're doing.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that that's so true. You know, that when I say I borrow from two different people 100% financing, that didn't start that way.
Sure.
You know, there was years of experience and reputation building and trust building and rapport and relationship building before that was possible. I think my first flip, I used a HELOC. I think I used if I remember correctly, I used a HELOC for the repairs and we got the deal funded. So got creative there a little bit.
Yeah, and first flip I did, we used my home equity line of credit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and there's a lot of equity now, so a lot of people could do it.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, so very cool. Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts of the show because I get to learn from somebody else's mistake, right? And so it is the time for the nightmare story. So guys, this is a really good opportunity to, you know, we can learn from our mistakes or we can learn from other people's mistakes. And hypothetically, we learn from both, right? Yeah. Because we'll always make mistakes every day. So if you don't mind, Matt, I'd love to hear your nightmare story.
Okay, so I was thinking about this. There's probably hundreds that I have. This one came to my mind quicker.
Okay.
So this isn't related necessarily to flipping, but about 4 years ago, I really wanted to buy an apartment building, right?
Okay.
I bought fourplexes, duplexes, stuff like that. So there was this 14-unit apartment building out in Tooele. And admittedly, I was a little nervous about it. I'm like, I don't know if I can really pull this off, but I want to do it. So stupid thing I did, number one, I didn't really inspect the property too closely ahead of time.
Okay.
Because I think I was kind of like nervous, like maybe I will do it, maybe I won't. I didn't want to commit.
Yeah.
And like, thing number one with a property, like inspect it, right?
Right.
And so I can't explain why I didn't inspect it because obviously on all the flips and stuff, like you're testing it for meth, whatever.
Yes.
Anyway, ended up buying this property through auction.com.
I think I saw this actually on auction.com.
Yeah. So it was out in Tooele.
Okay.
Tooele Valley Apartments.
Uh-huh.
It's the gem of Tooele. It's the
nice.
crown jewel.
Yes, it's like the Trump Towers.
It is. It's a phenomenal property.
Yes.
And so everything looked really, really pretty. The offering package and I mean, I'll admit it. I didn't really look at it before I won the bid, and then kind of during like our due diligence period, which was non-refundable earnest money due diligence period.
Yes.
So then I finally went out there and looked at it, and I'm like, okay, that's gonna work. So we figured out how to get it funded, and then about week 1, we realized that what we bought was this really gnarly, probably 70% occupied by drug and meth dealers, or maybe a little bit of crazy people with certain challenges. I mean, we park, and the guys, like, it's always kind of a sign when you see like grown men on BMX bikes with shopping bags on either side of the handlebars, and low riding pants,
right,
and like a hat on backwards, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, we're talking going in and out,
right?
It was like a 7-Eleven for drugs, and we're like, okay, we maybe bit off a little bit more than we could chew here. So
right.
So I mean, there's so many stories with this, but we had Chuck, who apparently was taking over an apartment of his buddy who was in the hospital dying.
Okay.
And so Chuck's not our tenant, right? But Chuck's telling us this story that he's helping Albert out, whatever, and our just head spinning because we're learning all of this stuff about all these issues with the apartment that obviously we could have known had we done a little bit of due diligence ahead of time, right? And so he's like, and I forget her name. I'm trying to remember her name, but it doesn't matter. He's like, you need to go to Unit 4 because it smells really bad in there. And we're like, well, yeah, why not? I'm sure it, whatever. It like they probably don't shower or whatever.
Right.
So we're knocking on the door, and she comes out, and she looks, good but it's like, oh wow, something smells in there,
Yes.
And keep in mind, Chuck's like, he's trespassing, and like, he found out that it smelled bad because he went through her unit to like jump the rail to get into his buddy's apartment, right? So we've got all sorts of criminal stuff going on anyway.
Right.
But Chuck's, good enough guy to give us a tip, right? Well, he's kind of ripping us off.
Yeah.
And so we're like, something smells really bad in here. Can we come in and look at it? And you walk in, your shirt's over your nose, and we go into the bathroom, and her tub is completely full of human waste.
Oh.
Apparently, the toilet had stopped working. I don't know how long, 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh my gosh!
A couple months.
Wow.
And she maybe had a little challenges, upstairs, and for her it was just like, the toilet wasn't working, so I just was using the bathtub. And we're like, oh, okay. We'll be right back. And I'm not joking. Like, the tub was full.
Wow.
Of human feces, and it smelled so bad. And we're like, you got to be kidding me, And outside of the apartment, people are like doing drug deals, We're like, this is weird. What is going on? We just spent $750,000 on this place. This is awesome. So we got some, those big hefty garbage bags. Yeah. A shovel.
Yeah.
Some gloves.
Oh my gosh.
And we're like, lady, come back when these are full.
Yes.
Like, you're doing this.
Yeah.
And so we hung out and did our other thing, and she comes out with a couple just full bags. And so me and my buddy Andy, who went on the deal with me, we're wearing gloves at this point.
Yeah.
And so we like double, triple bag them. And he grabbed one side, I grabbed the other side, and walked right out to the garbage, threw it in there, right back on the other one, threw it in there, and then called Eddie the plumber to come figure out how to, drain things properly. And I don't think he's called us back. But it was the most disgusting thing, and it was so disheartening because we're like, what in the world did we buy? Right. One, stupid, we could have known. Yeah. I was a little scared, right? It's my first deal.
Yeah.
On a bigger deal, right?
Yes.
Like on an apartment. And I mean, long story short was, the best thing I did was didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
I knew enough to know that the numbers were going to make sense.
Yes.
Right? That rents would have supported the price.
Right.
I think if I would have found out more about the apartment, like the actual tenants and stuff, ahead of time, I wouldn't have bought it.
Right.
So I'm actually glad I was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Because now it's a nice investment.
Because now it's a great investment.
Yeah.
Because we took a year and like slowly cleaned it up, got the bad tenants out.
Right.
You know, I mean, we got super creative with how to get some of those tenants out of there. You know, I mean, that were dealing drugs and stuff like that. And we had everything and anything you could think of. Bed bug infestation, cockroaches, you know, guns, and anyway, it was nuts. But we finally, and long story short, 4 years later, it's phenomenal property.
Yes.
You know, we probably have $400,000 or $500,000 in equity.
Nice.
You know, in the deal. So I guess the lesson learned there is,
don't do due diligence, just buy.
Maybe. But if the numbers are sound, there's like time will help you out.
Yeah.
And you've got to go to work and add value, clean it up.
Yeah.
So don't be totally freaked out by like a really gnarly, messy situation, because that's why I love flipping, and I actually love lending too, because you can see people do the same thing. You take something that's absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And perceived value of very little.
Right.
With a little bit of work and creativity, you can really get that thing. We took rents on that particular unit, for example. I think she was at $475, and I think that unit is like at $750 now.
Wow.
So
that's a great increase.
So most people would have been, cool, you just bought, a bunch of human waste, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, you got to see the vision.
Exactly.
And I'm glad we didn't know what that vision was maybe at first.
Right.
We thought we were kind of buying something somewhat turnkey.
Yeah.
It was not turnkey.
What kind of repairs, cosmetic repairs, did you do as you weeded out the bad tenants and put new people in? Did you do new flooring?
Yeah, for sure. Because some of it we just had to, because it was not habitable.
Got it.
Got it. And not every unit was like that, but the majority was
Yes.
We were wearing. Yeah, I have one picture of my old neighbors. They were even these high school kids couldn't hack it. They were in full hazmat suits.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. They lasted a half a day.
You got the scouts out there.
We got the scouts out there, and they're like, "This is not going to work for us."
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a lot of pain and suffering. Actually, there were a couple days where we're like, I'm not sure if we want to actually we thought about punting.
Right.
We're done.
Yeah.
But we stuck through it, and now it's great. We have an awesome property manager out there, Sandy, with Equity Property Management, and we were going out there once or twice a week. I haven't been out there in a year and a half.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's good.
So it's a great deal now.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd make a great Eagle Scout project, right?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe we could start finding boys that are getting ready to get their Eagle Scout, and then have them start doing the clean outs.
Absolutely. Making America greater, one unit at a time.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go to a commercial break right now, and when we come back, you're going to want to stay tuned, because Matt's going to go through the step-by-step of a transaction on how to get these deals funded. So we've kind of gone through a lot of that in the beginning on the questions, but we're going to break it down step by step. I'll ask him some questions as well. So stay tuned. All right, guys, we are back. You are listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and my guest is Matt Strong. And we're diving deep into real estate investing, borrowing money, and all of the amazing good things that come with it. So, Matt, we will, and you can keep
I'm just having fun with my friends right now.
Yeah. You can keep that going on. So now we're going to be diving into kind of the step-by-step. So somebody finds a deal, obviously, the step-by-step of when somebody comes to you. So they've already found the deal.
Right.
Okay, so and you've talked about a checklist before, but just so the listeners kind of have an idea of what this picture looks like, you mentioned you don't really look at the W-2s and then taxes in the past, current, like a Zions or a Bank of America would. So what's kind of the first thing somebody calls you up, they're listening on this show, let's just say hypothetically, let's keep this easy, they just inherited grandma's property, right? Okay. Tons of equity in that house. They already own it. But they're thinking, you know what, let's sell grandma's property, but let's fix it up so we can get top dollar, but oh, great, none of us have any money.
Sure.
So, maybe we can call Matt Strong.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would something like that look like?
Well, that example is super simple.
Okay,
right? Because they owe nothing on it.
Yes.
They pretty much, in this case, just need the rehab money.
Right.
Right? So let's say it's valued at, let's say the ARV is $100,000.
Okay.
Right? Keep some numbers super simple.
Awesome.
And let's say they need, say, $50,000
okay.
in rehab. These numbers probably don't make sense. But in theory, so they would call me. This is so. At the end of the day, the process should be very simple.
Okay.
This should not be complicated. I mean, it is complicated because every deal has its own unique challenges, right?
Yes.
But, you would call me, and pretty much over the phone, what I like to do is just get a quick highlight of like, hey, what do you think it is? What do you think the ARV is? What do you think the repair value is? Great. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is probably something that we can move to stage 2, right? Which is, please send me an email and I'll respond back to you with our checklist. But, then we kind of start formalizing what we talked about on the phone.
Got it.
Because now we're starting to keep a paper trail because I can't remember everything, right? Like,
Exactly.
what are the numbers on it? And then I'll get my checklist completed. And then we'll come to an agreement, whether on the phone or through an email or something, kind of like a commitment saying, hey, Yoshi, this house will be able to fund this much money and we can have it funded by this date. This is what we need in the meantime. So we'll set very clear expectations, right?
Yes.
But it's going to be very simple. And if you're dealing with a lender where things just don't make sense, like, I'll get you, we'll just, at closing, we'll put together the docs and we'll talk about what it's going to cost.
Right.
At the time we do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like I want to know from you what your plan is,
Yeah.
you need to know from me
Right.
what my plan is as far as what I'm going to charge you, right?
Exactly.
So if it's not clear really, really fast, like
Yes.
what you're expecting of me and what I'm expecting of you, then there might be a reason to start looking around, right? And so then I don't want to. It's just very simple, right? Like
Yes.
then there's the part of like, let's coordinate where to go for title.
Okay.
How we're going to do the loan documents, what kind of documents you're going to sign, which are very simple.
Yep.
A promissory note,
Yep.
a deed of trust,
Yep.
and a personal guarantee, typically, right? So
Yes.
pretty much all you're saying is like, you're loaning us this money, we're going to pay you back.
Yes.
Right? And so then those will be signed. Obviously, you need to get insurance. There's some other like parts to that, but really at the end of the day, it should be super simple. And what I tell you beforehand, as far as this is what it's going to cost, that should match, obviously,
Right.
what you're signing.
Yes.
Right? And then I can verify that what you're telling me, for the most part, is true through a title report.
Right.
Like that you actually do own it,
Yes.
free and clear, and inherited it from grandma.
Right.
And I can estimate, just like you are, like what the repairs are going to be.
Right.
Right? So all of that stuff that we talk about should end up being verified one way or another by the time we get to the final, closing table.
Yeah.
To get you the money.
Right.
Through the loan documents, through the title policy, all that kind of stuff. And if something doesn't quite match up right, I hear stories at times of like, they'll tell you it's 2 points and 12%. And then the lender does their docs and it's like, oh, you know what, on this one I forgot to tell you, it's actually 3 points and 14%.
Right.
Like I hear that all the time.
Oh,
Not all the
gosh.
time, but
Sure.
you hear it.
You
right?
hear it,
And
absolutely.
So there you're in a really bad spot because you maybe have a commitment and you have earnest money that's non-refundable. I mean, I've heard people tell me, like, I'm never using them again, but I had to close on it because I would have lost so much more.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
right.
So you got to, at some point, this is a trust thing where after you do a few, each other's process.
Yep.
So I always tell people the first loan we do is going to be the hardest because you're going to be worried about me if I'm going to do what I'm going to say I'm going to do, and I'm going to maybe be worried about you that you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
But once we have a successful experience, then we can repeat that, and everything can go quicker the next time.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. So then everything comes along to great. You've both agreed on the numbers in the loan. So you mentioned the title company. So now you're closing with the title company.
Yep.
And then how can you share with our listeners? Obviously, a lender needs to be protected, right? When they're loaning money, they need to be protected so that if they're not paid back, maybe they remodel grandma's house and goes, oh my gosh, this thing's so nice, let's move into it, right? And now your money's tied into there as there's lender. What kind of steps do you take to protect yourself, obviously?
So we are always going to be loaning in first position, which means that we have the primary lien on the property with terms of our documents that the borrower signs, basically saying that if you don't pay us back, we have the right to foreclose and take the property back.
Like any other bank.
Like any other bank, right?
Yeah.
So that's our hammer, right? To say, if you ultimately don't do what you're agreeing to do, that's okay.
Yes.
We'll do it for you.
Right.
Like we'll take it back.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've had to do that just a handful of times.
Sure.
Because sometimes it just, we've had some people commit fraud or whatever, right? And so
Right.
we have to have that tool to be able to take the property back if needed. And so that brings up a good point. As a hard money lender, we will not lend on owner-occupied or primary residence.
Got it.
Because those are always harder for the borrower to pay off quickly.
Right.
Right? Because usually they're borrowing from us because maybe they can't get a regular loan or their credit's not good. So a fix and flip is a great loan for both of us because it's usually vacant, it's usually rehabbed, and it's going to sell. It may not sell for what everybody wants, but at least there's an exit to get out of the property. So the quick answer is, we have, just like any bank would do, we have a deed of trust and a mortgage that we can foreclose on if it goes in default and the borrower does not do what they're supposed to do.
Got it. Okay, very cool. Just out of curiosity, we talked briefly about you may loan 100% on the acquisition. Sometimes you may only loan 70% on the acquisition.
Yep.
And maybe it's not cut and dry. It's probably not. It's probably property per property, location per location. But is there a general number that you're like, okay, if you're this far under the ARV, I would do 100% financing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have data on our almost 600 loans that we've done, and some are getting better deals, some are getting worse deals. But our average borrower is borrowing or buying the property, I should say, at about 69% of ARV.
Got it.
And that number is not an estimated ARV; it's an actual recorded sales price.
Okay.
ARV.
Got it.
So the sales price that they do versus what they bought it for, I can track and say they're at about 69%.
Got it.
Right? So in general, I think if you're looking at properties that are about 70% of ARV, that's probably a flip opportunity.
Yes.
There's some other kind of rule of thumbs that you can use. The other one's maybe 80% of ARV minus rehab.
Yeah.
That usually always is a good deal.
Yeah.
But in general, 70% of ARV is a deal that's going to pencil to flip. And then that number brings you to your purchase price.
Okay.
And typically we're funding somewhere around 85% of that purchase price number. So my borrowers are usually coming in with 10 or 15% down, and then they have resources for the rehab money.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. That's fantastic. All right, so Matt, for somebody who's looking to get started, and get started is always the fun part because if you're like me, I love getting started in a lot of stuff. I've invented a dog leash. I published a book. I flip houses. I buy rentals. I tried out for the Olympics. I tried out for college football at the age of 41. And I love to just get started. The start is the fun part for me, right? Because it's it's where my mind now has to go into the most creative mode to figure things out. So, but it's not always the best way because it takes a long time versus someone just telling you the path.
Right.
If you could tell someone who's looking to first just get started, they want to just do their first deal like we talked about earlier, what would you suggest to somebody as some advice that this is what I would do if I was you? I'd maybe read this book, or I would attend this thing, or I would go to here or there. What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's like playing Super Mario Brothers when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Right? Once you learn how to get those extra lives,
right?
Then you can keep playing the game. But where you can get to the game quicker to the end is when you find your friend that knows how to win it quickly,
exactly,
and then he tells you all the tips and tricks.
Right.
So you need to find the hacks.
Exactly.
And at some point, experience replaces. You can't replace experience and just doing it right. But
absolutely.
So there's so many resources. If you're local here in Utah or anywhere, I would start networking at your local RIAs.
Okay.
So Utah has the Salt Lake Real Estate Investors Association, the Utah Real Estate Investors Association. There's a northern one. There's a Utah County one, UV RIA. So the RIAs are great because you're going to be networking and getting content at the weekly and monthly meetings that are relevant to real estate investing.
Yep.
Right? They're going to give you exposure to different books, podcasts, stuff like that.
Right.
Now, there are courses and seminars that you can pay to go to that will help you. I honestly would say do all of it as much as you can, as cheaply as possible at first.
Yes.
And, YouTube. Now these days there's so many free resources.
Right.
But then at the RIAs and stuff like that, you're going to meet people that could potentially mentor you.
Yes.
And just shadow people, right? Shadow other flippers. Talk them into letting you just kind of tag along and slowly start learning it. But the most important things as far as simple things that you could do. Just start trying to look at real estate differently. Go drive around the neighborhood.
Right.
Start going to open houses. Start looking and saying, hey, why is that priced at this price versus that house at this price, right?
Right.
You ultimately want to get to the point where you understand values really, really well. Because I think of this whole process, the two most important parts of real estate is being able to estimate the future value after it's repaired, and then the rehab numbers. And so the RIAs, podcasts, mentors, track this Facebook Live, see all the people that you tag on it, and what they're doing, reach out to them. I mean, you just got to go after it and try and find the resources. And slowly, once you start putting yourself out there, those resources will come to you, and it will make all more sense.
Awesome. Yeah, this radio show is a great resource.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, guys, you have been listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. I'm your host, Yoshi Shiraki. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. We have a special guest, Matt Strong, who's in the house. Guys, if you have missed any of this show, you tuned in late and you want to get some great information, definitely track our social media. You can go to www.utahhomesweethome.com to our website, and there you'll see the social media links. You can also contact me if you have any questions at 801-810-4475, or you can email me at YS, which stands for Yoshi Shiraki, at utahhomesweethome.com. Matt, how can people reach out to you?
I think the simplest way is just call or text me. My number is 801-244-3888. That's 801-244-3888.
Awesome. Great. So, Matt, again, I want to thank you so much for coming onto the show. Man, you shared a ton of fantastic value with our listeners. I got a lot of great inspiration for listening. I even got some new ideas. I took some notes. It was... You wrote that. That's not my notes. In case you're wondering. Just in case you look. I saw you looking at my notes. That's not my notes right there. That's you. But thank you, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate you guys hearing the show on K-Talk Radio, Utah Home Sweet Home.